Our first UK buyer in 2021 came in June.
So we're back with Sean, Managing Director of Cloud9 Spain, and it's been a couple of months since the last market update. That presumably is a good sign, and if what other agents and generally people in the industry are saying is that it's been an extremely busy summer. How have you found it, Sean?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I think that it was something we wanted to do on a monthly basis, if not bi-monthly basis, and it's kind of gone out the window, hasn't it? So it's all kind of come along at once. I've been trying to buy a house, which I'm sure people who look at these videos on a regular basis will no doubt have appreciated. And we have just come out, or are just heading out of our busiest period ever in our 20 years of business here on the Costa del Sol. So it's all been a little bit crazy, and trying to manage all that through, and making sure that obviously our staff have been able to cope, that our clients have been looked after to the level that we expect, and also that we've managed to get the odd weekend in here and there for a little bit of a holiday. So it's been a good time. I'm not moaning, but yeah, the silence from my end is due to the fact that we've just been busy. And of course, when you run your own business, whenever you're mad busy, you're always conscious that you're not doing the things that have made you mad busy. So it's things like the admin and the marketing activity and the videos and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that now we seem to be coming out of this mad busy period, that I'll be able to get back onto it and do a little bit more at the back end.
Typically, August is a time when agents, or at least bosses of agencies such as yourself, might take a back seat and put their feet up and maybe escape the heat and go back to their Northern European country of origin. I take it this August, it wasn't a feet up experience for you.
You know what, Alfredo, I've been trying to do that for 20 years, and I've never had an August where I felt comfortable. I mean, the ideal for me would be to spend the whole of August maybe back in London or somewhere in the UK where the weather's a bit kinder to my pasty skin, and it's just a change of scenery, really. Here it's a little bit too hot for me, a little bit too busy. But in 20 years, I've never been able to do it. I think I had 1 year when I actually went for 2 weeks, and after about a week, the phones were ringing off the hook, and it was like, oh my God, and I felt like I was abandoning my ship. And this year, absolutely no chance. August is a weird one. July and August, we can always sense it coming about the third week in July, when the kids normally break up in Northern European countries, and we see the activity, we see the traffic building up, and we know what's coming. The problem is that in August, you can get a lot of people who've combined a property search with a holiday, and they may not necessarily be your prime clients because their agenda is split, but you still have to look after them, because amongst all of those people who maybe they've had enough of the beach and they just want to go and have a look at some properties for the day to keep themselves entertained, amongst all those are some amazing golden nuggets. So you have to do it all, and hit upon the ones that are genuine, who are serious, who are ready to buy. And this year particularly, there's been a lot of people in that position, and what's skewed the whole thing is that the Brits are back. And I think we did a video a little while ago saying, well, where are they? Well, they're back. And I think it's I've got some stats here which I hastily arranged before this meeting. Our first UK buyer in 2021 came in June. We are going to have our record year without a shadow of a doubt. We've done more business in July and August, transactional value, than we did in the whole of last year. And last year wasn't a bad year. But anyway, so our first UK buyer this year came in June. So from January to May, we've had no UK buyers at all in the market. That one in June, we then had nothing again in July from the UK. And then since August, 59% of our buyers have been from UK nationals, including all of our buyers so far in September. So you can see how the market shifted. We're an English language company. We do speak other languages, but our website is all in English. We don't translate it. So we have always been a predominantly kind of UK company. And up until the summer, we just had nothing coming from the UK. We had lots and lots of clients, some great clients, but from all over the world. And as soon as the UK have been allowed to travel without too many restrictions. It still costs a fortune to get all your tests, and you're filling out your forms takes about 2 weeks. But since they've been able to come here, the UK buyers have kind of blown us away. But that's, this has been a weird market. It's a weird market for everyone, no matter what business you're in. But for us, it's definitely segmented it into demographics and into certain times of the year when there's been activity from certain groups.
End of last year, in your market update, you forecasted that there would be a fairly busy summer once the skies reopened. In July, you had the busiest July you ever had in 20 years, certainly in terms of sales value. Then in around July time, maybe June time, whilst it was all a bit frantic, you forecasted that the absence of Brits was purely down to travel, and that when the skies reopened for the Brits, where there was a delayed reaction, as you just described, that we would see the Brits here, and we're now seeing the Brits here. What's happening on quarter four then?
Good question. Who knows? The interesting thing is, just to finish off the figures, our average sale value in August was 700,000 euros, which is a little low for us. Our average sale value so far in September is 1.4 million, so it's double. And that sort of goes back to the holiday maker combining it with a property hunt, and then the serious, I say serious people, everyone's serious to an extent, but the people who are only coming over to look at properties, and they tend to be the ones that come over September, October, November. So I honestly don't know, because I don't know if the madness of the last 3 months has been due to that unfulfilled demand from the COVID pandemic. So, is this year basically going to be, I don't know, 2 or 3 years worth of activity and revenue, and then it just goes back to normal because we've got a glut of clients wanting to buy a second home in Spain? I suspect there's an element of that, but I also suspect that a lot of people are looking at life very differently. I mean, particularly if you're in the UK, I mean, that seems to be becoming a third world country overnight at the moment. It's mad. I'm not going to get too political, but my goodness, that's not a place I'd like to be. So we're getting a lot of people, particularly at the high end, who are thinking, hang on a minute, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be where the sun is shining, even if it's just for 6 months of the year because of tax reasons rather than anything more. But we're getting a lot of those people who are making that quite a big decision to access a second home in Spain, or actually just to pack in what they're doing back in the UK or Germany or France or wherever and move here. So I think that the market will settle down to more realistic levels in terms of volume, but I also think that there's a new breed of client that's on its way that we've already seen, who is looking to make a more permanent or semi-permanent move here to Spain. So to answer your question, I don't know. It's the honest answer, because we never know. But I've been right so far. I think the last 12 months I've been pretty spot on in terms of what I predicted in terms of activity. And I think I can just sense it calming down a little bit in terms of levels of interest, and also transactional levels on the on the ground. Having said all that, though, our conversion rates are through the roof. So our conversion rates are double what they normally are.
By conversion rates, you mean from visit to sale?
From visits to sales, yeah. So it means to me that the people who are here looking at property are well researched. I mean, they've had plenty of time to research, let's be honest, but they're well researched. They know what they want and they're determined to do it. And that's fantastic for us, because nothing better than a well-researched, well-qualified client. So yeah, our conversion rates are up. Now, whether that changes because they were the people that had all the time in the world during COVID to look at all this and examine it and almost come to us with a shortlist, whether that's going to change now to a normal client who may need 2 or 3 visits and may just, may be happy to spend more time doing it. I don't know. But the mood I sense in the market is that Marbella is a hot potato. People want to be here. People want a place in the sun, particularly, as I say, at that mid to high end where people can afford to do it in style. And there's not many places, certainly in Europe, where where it competes with what Marbella has to offer. And by Marbella, I don't just mean Marbella town or district. So it's a really interesting market. Last year, we saw a glut of high-end sales. So although we didn't do a huge amount of transactions, as I say, last year, we did as many transactions as we've done in, I think, July and August this year. But those were of such significant value because the only people that really could buy last year were the people who, either they didn't need to get here and they could just make that decision, or they could get here without worry of reporting to work on a Monday morning. So let's be honest, we're talking about the wealthy people. So last year was the wealthy hoovering up options in the key areas, in the 5-star areas. This year has been a more consolidated approach from all angles of the market. First 6 months, mainly Northern Europe and other parts of the world, and I think the second 6 months will be the UK buyers. So it's just interesting how it all works out, isn't it?
Do you think that the fact that this the tax breaks that the Junta of Andalucía gave till the end of the year on stamp duty and whatnot on transfer tax runs out at the end of the year, combined with this sudden rush of higher end purchases in the prime areas of Marbella, starting to perhaps affect the balance between the supply and demand balance, trying to become more demand than supply? Do you think this will contribute to Q4 being perhaps continuing busy?
Yeah, I think so. Although the feedback I've had is that the reduction in transfer tax and stamp duty is more about, oh, that's great, that's handy, rather than a driving force to make people buy. I think for the sake of 1 or 2%, people will buy at the right time rather than feel rushed into it. But certainly for the top end of the market, we recently did a transaction, I think at 3.5 million euros the other week. And when you're comparing transfer tax of 7% and the best part of 10%, then that's a significant saving. So I think for the high-end buyers, it maybe has become more important. But again, it's all relative, isn't it? The high-end buyers might not need that discount, whereas somebody buying at 200,000, it might be a big deal for them. So it's all relative.
So it's not really a strong incentive. It's just a little extra.
Yeah, it's just a little
bonus.
Extra.
A little bonus. It's not going to mean that. What I'm getting at, it's not going to mean that come Q1 of 2022 that it's all going to go very quiet because all the fun's over and whatnot.
I don't see that, and I think the reason I can say that is because we're still getting people buying off plan, where obviously those savings aren't going to be relevant because they're completing in a year or two's time. Well, they may continue with the reduced stamp duty and things like that, but
it's only a small difference, isn't it, on the stamp duty?
Yeah, it is. It's 1.5 down to 1.2 on new builds. But the transfer tax is an interesting one. I mean, I've just benefited from that myself. I'm buying a house at the moment, and when I saw all the figures, I thought, oh, okay, I've saved myself a few quid there, and it's always a nice feeling, isn't it? We all like a bit of a bargain, so yeah, that was nice.
And you just bought a house in the country.
In the country. Well,
you've gone rural.
I've gone campo, but hey, I've been Montemayor, which is, look, it's only 10 minutes from where I am now, so it's not as if I'm going to be growing my own olives and herding a load of sheep around, anything like that, Alfredo. Don't get any ideas.
Is this a coincidence, or is this following the trend of people moving out to more space and this whole idea that because of what's been happening in the world, everybody's in a run to the country and want to live on a tree or something like that?
No, do you know what? It's like most things in life. It's a combination of things. I mean, we have an office in Guadalmina, which was heavily populated by our staff up until COVID, and everyone started working from home. Now I can't get them back, so our office is kind of empty. It's got some nice furniture in because we also have the furniture business, but we're not really using it. So I'm trying to run 2 businesses from my kitchen table. This is the empire. This is the empire. And the reason we're in the kitchen today is because I'm surrounded by boxes elsewhere. So please forgive me. Yeah, and I looked at it the other day with my partner Paul, and we said, the piles of paper were getting higher and higher as we were trying to eat our breakfast, and I was trying to pay people and settle things, and I just thought this is getting crazy. We're trying to run 2 businesses from a kitchen table, but that sort of coincided with finding a house that we thought was genuinely good value in an area that we liked, and we just thought, and we could afford it, which is great. So we just thought, let's make the move. It's a lot more space than we probably need, but I've never had my own pool in Spain, which I kind of quite liked. I'm at an age now where, I think I should have my own pool. I've never had a dog in Spain. I'm an animal lover because I've always lived in apartments or houses that were kind of in a development. So it's just a change of pace, change of life. I'll be announcing my retirement any day soon.
in line with what you were saying about we're seeing the British coming finally. They're no longer part of the European Union, so they can't just willy-nilly grab a residency. It's not as straightforward as it used to be.
Yeah.
Is that something that is coming up in your conversations with the buyers, or are they mostly not planning on spending more than 6 months here anyway?
No, it's coming up every time, because I think even if you're buying a holiday home for 6 weeks of the year and you're going to rent it out, I think maybe you're doing it with one eye on the future. And I think a lot of people do it with the intention of maybe semi-retiring or retiring eventually to their home in Spain. So it's a conversation we're having on a daily basis. We've actually just partnered with a company that provides specialist advice particularly for British people when it comes to organising their tax affairs, because particularly higher up the chain you go, I mean, there are ways around it in terms of different visas and stuff like that, but obviously then you have the impact of wealth tax. And if you have a serious level of worldwide assets, then Spain is not the cheapest place to live. And we've had clients looking at Portugal recently, and a lot of them have actually come back to Spain because although the tax benefits are better in Portugal, the lifestyle isn't, and they've decided that the lifestyle outweighs the tax benefits. So it's an interesting market at the moment. People trying to find their feet and trying to find a degree of comfort in where they are, but also they want to make sure that legally and financially it makes sense for them.
This is homework that they could do in advance. Am I right?
Absolutely. And they should do, because we had a client very recently last couple of weeks who had already consulted the experts on this, and so has all their kind of calculations done as to where they could be, where they should be. And then it was a case of coming over here to see if they liked it enough to veer away from the Portugal angle. Anyway, they did. They loved it over here. They could see that it was a lifestyle that suited them far more than Portugal, which I mean, Portugal's beautiful. There's some great places there, some great resorts, but I think and we had this discussion with the clients when they were here. It's the little bubbles of luxury and elegance that you find are just that. They're little bubbles. You come out of that bubble, and then it's Portugal, which is it's probably not as advanced as the Costa del Sol in terms of infrastructure, in terms of kind of how they do things. So you can feel a little bit, oh, hang on a minute, we need to get back into our bubble. Whereas the Costa del Sol is just a bigger bubble, isn't it? Again, it's not the real Spain. But one thing I would say is that there's going to be an interesting thing that happens with vendors over the next 6 months. Over the summer, because of the glut of demand, and it's something you referred to earlier, because of the glut of demand, we had a lot of vendors strengthening their position. That was coupled with a couple of things, actually. There was the overriding impression for vendors that there was a lot of activity in the buying market, that they could hang on to their asking price for as much as possible. And then there was a second thing where a lot of vendors were actually using their properties for the first time in a long time because of COVID. And although they may have had the property on the market during COVID, they actually came over here in July and August and loved it. And now it's like, oh, actually, we're not going to sell. So we've got a guy, he's probably watching this video, actually, a Swedish guy, really lovely client, who's tried to buy 2 properties. He's made full asking price offers, one in Puerto Banús and one on the Golden Mile. So hot areas in terms of buying activity. And on both occasions, the vendors turned around and said, we're not selling now. And he's there making asking price offers. So I think what will happen, though, I think as the market cools a little bit, and I'm not expecting it to cool to nothing, there'll still be a lot of buyer activity, but I think buyers are going to have the opportunity of being a little more, they're going to be able to look around and look at different options. There's not going to be that glut of buyers for the same properties. So I think vendors are going to have to rethink a little bit. If they do seriously want to sell, they can't be as bullish as maybe they have been over the summer. And that in turn will represent some opportunities for buyers who are just prepared to wait maybe 2 or 3 months for the market just to ease a little bit. I've got a guy at the moment who's doing exactly that. He thinks the developer is getting a little bit optimistic with his pricing, as I do. So the developer's seen a lot of activity over the last 3 months, but I think the same developer is going to be, by the end of the year, end of the tax year as well here in Spain, they're going to be wanting to do some deals. It's a risk because obviously the units that you like in that development, maybe the ones that go before Christmas, but he's prepared to take that risk and hope that the prices come down maybe by 4 or 5%. So interesting kind of where we head with all of this.
In the prime areas this year so far, people that I've spoken to, both in terms of agents and developers, master agent type characters. They're saying that we're running out of decent stock in some of these prime areas, particularly in Marbella itself. Do you think this will lead to it becoming more of a off-plan market because of the lack of existing stock available?
Definitely. I mean, particularly at the top end, it's been cleaned out in a lot of places. So I know you spoke to Roger from Solvilla, and they've created their own market in Nueva Andalusia very, very successfully and very cleverly, high-end, beautifully presented properties. And they have run out of stock, and clients who want that are like, where do I go now? I'm going to have to do a reform project or whatever. So I think in that market, there's definitely going to be a move towards off-plan. The problem is, of course, is finding land that you can either redevelop an existing villa, or where you can build something from scratch, because a lot of the best land is already gone. And what's happened, of course, during COVID is that we didn't really have any developers taking a risk. So we didn't have anyone starting any new projects. There's still the legacy projects from before COVID that need selling out, and that will happen over the next, I'm guessing, 12 to 18 months. But in terms of new projects, there's not a lot going on, because it would have taken a really brave developer to have released a project in COVID, during the COVID times, because nobody knew what world we were going to emerge into. So it's a really interesting thing. I think there's going to be some off-plan opportunities coming up, but then, of course, you've got the thing about, will people wait? We all know now how long 18 months feels. Do we want to wait another 18 months to enjoy our hard-earned place in the sun? So maybe the way forward is an eco-build developer who's going to knock these things up in 6 to 12 months rather than 18 to 24. Maybe there's an opportunity for that product.